Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Barry Donman from First Baptist Church of Azle. We appreciate you coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let's pray together. Father in heaven, we thank you for another wonderful day. We thank you for life. I pray that you would help us to strive to achieve great things, to overcome great adversity, and to really positively affect the lives of others. Pray that you would bless and be with the decisions and the people in this room as they lead. Forgive us when we fall short. Bless this place and all these people. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the court. We have just one announcement as it relates to the agenda. You might notice that today we do have a work session, and the work session is going to be after our closed meeting, and the work session is going to be held in 504C. Thank you.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our special call meeting of June the 5th and our regular meeting of June the 10th.
Move approval of both.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under our proclamations and resolutions, I believe, Commissioner Brooks, you have some students here and some congratulatory certificates to present.
Absolutely, Judge. As you will recall, every year we are able to host students from the Fort Worth ISD's Vital Link program. This morning we have another group of kids from that program. These are all young ladies from the Young Women's Leadership Academy. They're rising sixth graders, and they will spend their week rotating through county government and learning about what we do. It's in line with your initiative when you were president of NACO to ensure that people know what county government does. And I told them this morning that they will be well ahead of a lot of adults because there are a lot of adults out there who haven't got a clue. Before I call them up, I just want to recognize the fact that Shannon Fletcher was a member of the very first Vital Link class. And look how well she turned out.
It survived in spite of you, didn't it?
At any rate, we've got 11 young ladies with us this morning, and we've got certificates for each of them. So I will change microphones.
Okay, and I understand that that Melissa Burleson from the Tarrant County Credit Union is also here to provide and to present them with some gift to each one.
So Melissa, if you come up and join me, we can do both of these at the same time. Ladies, please stand. First of all, we've got Ms. Noemi Arellano. Noemi, please come up. Ms. Karen Benitez. Ms. Amaya Blakely. Ms. Kimberly Castaneda. Ms. Zaida Hernandez. Ms. Priscilla Lopez. Our budding young woman. Ms. Aida Martinez. Aida wants to play football. Ms. Jocelyn Mendez. Ms. Eleanor Morris. Ms. Julia Ruiz. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Lisa Smith. When we come up to
Oh,
this,
okay.
then, court.
We're giving up picture. But this time we got the flags on. I'll stand up front, we'll get the back.
Going around, going around, all the way around. There you go. Commissioner Wynn?
Stand in front of you.
Need a lot of.
And you get everybody?
I did. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Would please give this lady a hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Do we need a motion to receive and file the,
Move to receive and file.
Second.
we have a motion, a second, receive and file, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Johnson, I believe you have a certificate of appreciation.
I do, for Dr. Elva LeBlanc. Elva is president of Northwest Campus of TCC and has served on our mental health, mental retardation board for, I believe, 7 or 8 years.
Doctor, come on down.
Did an outstanding job and has served through all the officers of that association as president. And we were sorry to see her go, but we understand. But if you would read the plaque, please.
Presented to Dr. Elva LeBlanc in appreciation for your dedication and leadership and service to the community as a member of the Tarrant County Mental Health, Mental Retardation Board of Trustees, 2007-2014. Our sincere thanks accompany this expression of recognition and gratitude. Thank you very, very much for your service.
Thank you.
Second vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Elva, thank you very much. We appreciate what you've done for us and hope that maybe we can find another here.
So you'll know when you see his name on caller ID to ignore it.
Do you know how to use that thing, Ron?
We really sunk now to the bottom of the barrel when we have our.
Our tax assessor.
You know, wait till you get to the notice for this, for the cost of this one.
Thank you so
Any
much.
comments you'd like to make? And please continue your service out there at the
TCC.
college. We appreciate what you do
Thank you.
for us.
Thank you. It's been quite an honor for me to serve on the MHMR board. We made great progress. We have always had good leadership, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I failed to mention that I mentioned last week that we needed a hat for Texas Tech, and it has suddenly appeared upon my desk. We have all three teams are still in. All three of our Texas teams are still in. So we're excited about that. I think TCU plays Virginia today, and that's going to be. I think they're the number one. What are you grinning about? Jack, neither your team nor my team made it this far.
Are you a soccer fan, Coach?
Well, we were looking for in fact, Commissioner Brooks mentioned that we needed a USA hat up there. You know, they did a great job yesterday, and the young man who scored the first goal was from Nacogdoches, Texas, so Texas again was well represented.
Clint Dempsey from Texas.
Yeah, he was Nacogdoches.
Great.
So, and it was his birthday. So he had a pretty good birthday yesterday, I think.
Yeah, he did.
I'll bring you a Germany hat also.
Go right ahead, GK. Go right ahead.
I heard the news, and on one of the news channels, they said that guy was from Natchitoches, Texas. And there is no Natchitoches.
No, Nacogdoches
No,
is in Louisiana.
Louisiana. So, but we're excited for all of that, and we'll keep cheering them on. Did we do the consent? We did the consent agenda.
We did.
Mr. Manius, hey, look, you got to get our priorities straight. You know, and this consent agenda is one thing, but you know these baseball teams are another.
That's true.
And football.
Members of the court, we have 5 items to bring to you this morning, and we're going to have several of our staff members come up and make some presentations to you. On item number 1, we're requesting that the court approve the initiative charters and vision statement for the county strategic plan. Let me tell you just a little bit that as you know, we have a new employee in our department, Kansas, come on up for just a minute. And Candace has been working very hard with a bunch of different departments to put the initiatives together. And as we all know, working with various departments and trying to move everybody in the same direction is challenging sometimes. And I think she's doing a really good job. We have our initiatives, and I just would like for her to make a few comments as it relates to that, and then we're going to ask you to approve those. Our goal is, once we get these approved, then we will bring back the plan July 1st? July 1st for your overall approval of the strategic plan.
Welcome, Candace.
Thank you. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Good morning.
On February 25th of this year, the court approved the goals and objectives for the strategic plan. The items before you today, as DK mentioned, are the 14 charter initiatives that have been identified as priority improvement projects to help push forward the goals and objectives, and also the vision statement. The charter initiatives cover several topics, including but not limited to strengthening the county's financial standing, improving the organizational culture, enhancing economic development incentives, evaluating citizen satisfaction, and developing productivity metrics across the county. Once we receive the court's approval, we'll finalize the strategic plan, and as DK stated before, bring that document to you July 1st. To ensure the success of the plan in accordance with the Governing for Results policy, monthly updates on the initiatives will be provided to the County Administrator's Office starting in July. We will also begin working with the departments to redefine their workload measures into key performance indicators and develop their performance scorecards. Per Charter Initiative 2.1.1, we anticipate the metric software to be installed and begin reporting on the metrics in April 2015. If the court has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I've got a couple of things as we went through it. On 1.2.1, where we talk about addressing health care coverage and costs and employee retires, I thought I recall that as we went through the discussion that one of our central things was also just to improve the overall health of our employees. And on that particular page, we talk a lot about the costs, but I also believe that we indicated that we really wanted to focus on the overall, not only the physical health, but also financial health and the whole process of that deal. And I didn't find that in other parts of the program.
What we tried to do was, I believe what happened was that we had our various goals and then our objectives that were developed, and then we brought you all back a refined set of objectives, and we tried to blend those particular issues into, or weave them into various elements of the different initiatives. We are not ignoring that at all. We think that we have those blended into other areas also.
I wished we would attempt to at least find a way to at least put some word in there, because I don't think we ever really talk about anything other than the costs. Okay. And I know I have a tendency to focus, but really I believe that our overall goal is really more also to, and we're going to talk about it in our workshops today, and that's to improve the overall health of our employees. On the next one, on the 2.1.1, we talk about productivity metrics, and I think I'm reading that to say that it's among our various departments and our employees, but in our team composition, the team members who are responsible for this, we really don't have anybody from the various departments. And I think we should include or expand that team to include either department heads or elected officials from our larger departments, or at least whoever they would appoint to that team, so that they can kind of help in developing those metrics that they're going to be evaluated and judged by. 2.1.2 is our IT, and we talk a lot about, the vision, updating the strategic plan. We've got a significant investment currently and a continuing investment right now in TechShare, which is more of a collaborative effort with other counties, and we don't mention that in here anywhere. So I would really like for us to talk about, or to at least acknowledge where we are from the TechShare standpoint. I think on 3.1.1, we did in our team members there where we start talking about effectively communicating, we did include representatives from the larger departments, and I think that's very good, and that will be helpful in that regard. We talk about on 3.1.2, online education training system for employees under measures affected. We mentioned their satisfaction, citizen satisfaction ratings, and but we don't really talk about the citizen satisfaction survey until we really get back in, I think, 4.
Yes, sir.
So is that really going to be a measure affected?
Well, I think it relates back to having the competency of the employees, so they're they're able to do their job better. So
Okay.
that would impact the satisfaction level of the customer.
Okay.
But we can reword that too.
Conducted employee satisfaction survey.
Yes, sir.
One of the things I'd kind of know that when we ask them, what are we trying to focus on with regards to their satisfaction? Are we talking? Do we have a particular? And I know Ms. Glenn, you're responsible for that part of it. Do you know what we're asking them to? If they're satisfied with what and how? And are we going to give them some comparative statistics?
What we intend to use on that particular item is that there's some standard employee satisfaction surveys that are available through ICMA and maybe even NACO that we wanted to explore and look at to use as a model, just the same as the citizen satisfaction surveys. There's not a need for us to reinvent the wheel. We can take something that has already been developed and modify that to our needs. So we were going to use that approach to develop both of those surveys.
Is there some place where, I know that we talk at times about HR, IT, I'd say facilities, where really the customers that they serve are either employees, but they're also departments, and it could be the frontline people. For IT, for example, it could be the person who's interacting with the citizens. Are we proposing anywhere in here where we're going to do satisfaction surveys that would say, okay, frontline tax folks or frontline county clerk folks, is IT providing you with the services that you need to be able to interact more appropriately or effectively with the citizens that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
If I could, pardon me. As Mr. Maney has indicated, we have been actually taking a look at tools, and actually they're called engagement surveys. And those surveys don't address specifically what you've just asked about. If we're asking departments to comment, specifically about the work of IT, for example, in the example that you gave. Now, I know that IT currently has surveys. So, for example, when you call the help desk and put in a ticket, then I know when I've done that, I've received a survey asking about my comments about the help that was given, how effective it was, how quick it was, that kind of thing. So IT currently has a tool that they use to survey departments. What we've looked at, again, is something more global that tries to speak to employees and their satisfaction with benefits, for example, with communication within the organization, how effective it is, how we communicate. So it's more global, which is what we set out to do initially. Okay,
I think you've got the satisfaction surveys in a couple of different places, but ultimately I hope that we would have I can think of 3, and there may be many others, and I would hope that the teams are made up. The satisfaction, the employee part, we've talked a little bit about. The citizen part is coming up in Section 4, but I would like for us to have a specific survey that maybe is separate and apart, that takes our internal service departments, and that they're also surveyed. And I hear what you're saying there, but just to make sure we have 3 distinct ones, and that there's, and that there's a team that kind of works on how all three of those would be put together.
And I think we can certainly do that, Judge. When HR initially began our conversation about a survey, we were interested initially in looking at departments, their thoughts, feedback that they could give specifically to HR and HR staff. And then when we began meeting with the consultant, it was his request, Jack's consultant, that we expand and get more into whether or not employees are just sort of satisfied generally with not just HR, but with other aspects of the county. So that's how we started off initially. We have a specific survey that we've designed and still have available that specifically addresses HR. And I think it'd be fairly easy to tweak it if we want to include departments like IT, whichever departments you'd be interested in. So we have that, and that's ready to go as far as we're concerned.
Well, and that may be something else that I would ask the team to decide, is to kind of clarify what they believe to be the service departments within the county, as well as those that primarily are dealing with citizens versus dealing with employees from that perspective.
And that's one reason why when we establish our surveys, some surveys will be inward-looking, and some surveys will be outward-looking. And then there'll be a combination where that we have, we'll put some general questions into the outlooking type surveys that will do things such as talk about our facilities and services and where those services are located. Judge, I do want to go back on one issue that and maybe for the court's benefit, while we've identified teams that are going to be the point people on this, that doesn't mean that it's just those team members that are going to participate. They're going to be responsible for doing the day-to-day management of accomplishing the task. It also means that we're going to have to go out and, like the goals and objectives or the metrics for the different departments, it was never that individual team that was going to put them together or decide what those metrics were. That's working with every department that we begin to measure. And it's pretty well spelled out in the governing for results piece of it. That's why when you see these initiatives, you need to think about it as not in the weeds type activity. This is overall, but we're going to have to involve a lot more people, a lot more departments in order to accomplish those type of things. So I would suggest that when you look at this, please be aware that we are involving a lot more departments than are just simply stated in these initiatives.
And I think that's very critical. I hear that, but sometimes when people don't see their names or their departments represented on the team, they don't really feel like.
It's kind of like when as we're developing our tech share programs. That's a combination of a lot of different departments that are participating. And so, that's worked very well for us, and we would never step out there and try to create a metric system for a department. That's something that those departments need to generate, and we need to simply help them formulate that. Then we need to bring that back to the court for you all to review and approve.
I'd like to comment on the various satisfaction surveys.
You bet.
Those can produce some very valuable information, but unless we've got a plan to take those, particularly the areas of dissatisfaction, and address them, then I think we are in danger of creating some expectations that will go unfulfilled. And if we're going to do that, we're better off not asking the question in the first place than to collect a bunch of dissatisfaction data and do nothing about it.
And Commissioner Brooks, if you look at Initiative Charter 4.12, that speaks exactly to what you were saying. After we've taken the citizen satisfaction, we will design outcome metrics to address those issues that were highlighted as being areas where we need to improve. So we'll be working with the departments to come up with those metrics after we've had the actual survey and get the results and come up with solutions to address those.
One of the things, though, along the lines, Commissioner, that I hear what you're saying is that I think the difficult part is sometimes in educating, whether it be sometimes the employees or giving them something to compare to. Mm-hmm. When I call folks, oftentimes they say, well, we're very happy with the benefits that we've got. But there are times when people say, well, golly, I wished I was paid more. Well, you can make that wish, but if you don't know, if you don't have a comparison or some sort of,
Right.
then what you do is you end up giving them a place to make a request, but they don't have anything to compare it to know whether they're getting where they sit in the compensation or in the benefits or whatever. So it's almost an education piece before you do the survey, so that they've got an idea or of what county is supposed to be doing, especially as you go out to the citizens. A lot of times they come to us and they'll ask us, well, why haven't you taken care of this road? Well, it's the city's road, and we don't have the responsibility on that. So I think it is important, as Commissioner Brooks is pointing out, not to let that just be wide open and end up creating expectations and then us not being able to address or to go forward on that. So I think we have to, and I know the group will look at that very carefully. I had the same question about the team member makeup on 4.1.1. Mr. Mayes, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's just real critical that from the very start that all the departments or elected officials or groups of individuals feel like they're a part of that deal. I think that's all the comments that I had. So it was very good, and appreciate it, and look forward to us kind of moving forward with that.
Well, it's a step in the right direction. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
This is going to be a difficult journey because it involves a lot of changes in the way we operate, the way we think, and the way we plan for our future. So with you being on board, I have high hope and high expectation for you. So congratulations on the first step.
Okay, thank you.
If I can be helpful in any way, feel free to give me a call. Thank you.
Will do. Will do. Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
Do I have a motion in a second?
Move for approval of the initiative charter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
I had to apologize to Candace because I keep pronouncing her first name as Kansas, and I will do that
Kansas.
publicly. I am so sorry.
That's all right. Try to get him to say Waxahachie.
I don't go to that part of the state. Members of the court, we can go to item number 2. I'm going to ask Ms. McMillan to come up and address the court at this time.
Judge, good morning, Commissioners. In April, representatives from the City of Haltom City made a presentation to the court regarding the establishment of a 108-acre tax increment reinvestment zone on vacant property that's north of 820 in between Beach Street and Highway 377. The project plan has now been approved by the board, and the zone has been established, and so we're before you now with the actual tax abatement, the tax increment financing agreement. The projects in this plan will fund approximately $3.5 million in project costs that consist of roadway and trail improvements and utility infrastructure to the sites. This is estimated to facilitate private development of about $136 million in high-quality single-family residential and multifamily residential units, as well as retail and commercial uses in the zone. The City of Haltom City is contributing 75% of its increment into the zone and also 50% of its 1-cent sales tax revenue generated within the zone, estimated to be approximately $12.6 million over the 20-year life of the TIF district. The agreement you have before you provides for the county's participation at 75% of its increment over the period of the zone, or until a maximum of $3,250,000 has been reached. The hospital district is not being asked to participate. So we're asking the Commissioners Court today to consider approval of the resolution and participation agreement providing for Tarrant County's participation in the City of Haltom City Tax Increment Financing Reinvestment Zone Number 1.
I will move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Ms. McMillan, where are we on Everman?
I'm sorry?
Everman, where are we on Everman?
Where are we? We've already approved city of Overland's.
We haven't done the financing, the project plan and all of that.
It's already been,
It's going to be something that we need to make sure that we bring everybody up to date on where we're at.
I mean, we've approved it, but we have not met. I don't know what's happening in terms of the project moving forward, but I will check with them on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the court, if we can go to item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners' Court approve and concur with actions of the Hospital District Board of Managers and approve an amendment number 2 to the commercial lease agreement between the Hospital District and Mid-Cities Health Facilities Partners.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 4, we're requesting that the Commissioners' Court approve a bad debt policy for the Tarrant County Housing Assistance Office. You might recall that that was one of the elements that was in the audit by the county auditor. Mr. Pollard, who is the director of that office, has been working with the auditor's office and the district attorney's office to meet the needs of or the requirements that have been laid out. We believe that it's a good policy, and we're requesting your approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, we're asking, on item number 5, we're asking the court to approve an out-of-state travel request, which is an exception to our travel policy, which will allow for per diem reimbursements to be in the amounts that have been federally approved for Washington, D.C. This is for CSCD.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I got some. A question, I guess. Does this come out of CSCD's budget?
It's actually a federal grant, and it's a requirement that they make this trip as part of that federal grant.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, we have done this before in several different instances. Normally, we use the county's travel policy. The federal government requires that we use county travel policy, except for those states that are out of the contiguous United States and also to Washington, D.C.
Okay. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder?
Risk Management Board is recommending the approval of the 2 claims that are listed on your court communication. And just to note, I mean, we've stopped putting a specific amount of rental car days in these communications. We're just telling you that it includes, we'll also do rental. Sometimes we can't control what's going on at a body shop, so we don't want to be back and forth on just rental car variations. So,
Move approval.
thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn?
Good morning again.
Good morning.
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 I have 5 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2, we're asking the court to approve a departmental reorganization for juvenile services. Our reorganization is defined in our civil service rules as being a change in the duties of a position. In this case, Juvenile Services is requesting the reclassification of 2 positions as outlined in your court communique, a juvenile caseworker supervisor to a records management manager. That's redundant. And the second part of it is they're requesting a reclass of a juvenile probation officer to the assistant JCMS manager. Both these reclasses will support juvenile management and the management of case records. So what we're asking for today is just the ability to move forward and have these positions reviewed by the Job Evaluation Committee, which I think is scheduled to meet in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, whatever the Job Evaluation Committee decides, then that's the results. And again, we're just asking for your permission to move forward with having the committee take a look at these positions.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the Domestic Relations Office. The Assistant Director of Enforcement, Melissa Wade, is going to retire at the end of this month with 380 vacation hours. Ms. Glenn is requesting a waiver effective July 1st for all 380 hours of vacation. We're estimating that the net cost to the general fund will be a little bit more than $18,200, and that amount does include fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our 4th item, we're asking the court to approve changes to the table of reorganization to reclassify Secretary 4 position in Juvenile Services. Again, as outlined in your court communique, Juvenile Services has a Secretary 4 position, which is a pay grade 15. They're requesting the ability to reclass to an Administrative Assistant 3, which is a pay grade 16. This would be supported by Title 4E grant fund, so there'd be no impact to the general fund. We're asking for the reclass effective June 18th.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our final item, we're asking for a change to the table of reorganization to reclassify an Executive Secretary 2 position in IT. This is a position that's been vacant for several months. It's a pay grade 70. This position was reviewed by the Job Evaluation Committee. They're recommending the assignment of a pay grade 71 and a title change to an Executive Assistant. We're asking that this reclass be approved June 18th. We're estimating that the impact to the general fund will be a little bit more than $6,000, and that does include fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beecham.
Candace failed to tell you that she was a Georgia Bulldog. I've chosen not to hold that against her until after we play them this year. But
I got to have another hat.
we have 2 items for your consideration this morning. Our first
I
item
usually
is
don't win very much during the SEC year anyway, so it won't be a real big deal.
what it is. We have 2 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2014-119, signing of contract for erosion control and hydromulch services and materials. A recommendation will be toward a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is an item in regards to bid 2014-104. This is an annual contract for the purchase of a 6,000-pound capacity diesel-powered forklift for precinct number 1. 3 vendors chose to respond to this particular bid. We received 2 bids and 1 no bid. The low bid did not meet specifications on 21 some odd items. The next highest bid was $23,000 over budget, so we're suggesting rejecting all bids and asking for permission to rebid with revised specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Mr. Riley. Ms. Green. I'll just sitting back there waiting for me to call the wrong person.
Your Honor, we're asking the court to approve the resolution in order to convey to the Tarrant Regional Water District for a public purpose all the Tarrant County's interest in and to a community area in Eagle Mountain Acres Unit Number 1 subdivision that was dedicated to the public by plat on June 18, 1951, and is recorded in Volume 388I, page 59 of the Plat Records of Tarrant County, Texas, and authorize the county judge to sign the deed without warranty. we've had calls on this particular lot. It's being misused. There's people partying. They're leaving trash, carcasses, beer cans in the area. And so we feel like it's in the best interest
Carcasses?
Yes. Yes, animal carcasses. We feel like it's in the best area of Tarrant County to convey this lot to the...
Keep going there, I'm just having fun.
He's just mumbling.
Anyway, we feel like it's in the best interest of Tarrant County and the community to convey this property over to the Tarrant Water Regional District that controls the lake, because they'll have better control, and they're going to do some fencing. They'll still let it be used for people to dock their boats and so forth, but when the lake levels get low, they will control the safety issue as going into the lake with their boats at that location. And we've talked to them extensively about this, and they have agreed that they will accept that responsibility.
When was that originally conveyed?
In 1951.
That's before two of us were born.
It was?
I said that was before two of us were born.
Probably. Well, I've looked at the lot, and I can tell you that it's just a trash dump right now, and it's very inconvenient for the people that live on both sides who have nice homes there. So the Water District has stepped forward and agreed to maintain and handle the control of who uses it and how it's used.
Is it actually a little neighborhood back in there? Is that just?
It's a little neighborhood back in there, and it was a lot that was dedicated.
How big
I
is
can say before you were born. How big? It's a pretty nice sized lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I will move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn.
Move for the approval of the interlocal agreement with the City of Mansfield as described on item AJ 1A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Johnson.
I have a couple of interlocals, one with the City of Westworth Village and one with Azle Independent School District. Item 8, J, 2, A, B, C, and D. I'd move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have one item to bring to you this morning. It's the monthly update from the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning, Roger.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manius. I think it's important at various times to create some level of perspective of where we are. For the most part, all of us in this room have a pretty good situation. We're able to do things that we want to do. We're able to go where we want to go. For the most part, we're healthy. I think there's a time to ground yourself on the initiatives that you propose and the things that you do. At the hospital district, we oftentimes see people every day that don't have some of the luxuries that we have. They don't have the luxuries of mobility. They don't have the luxuries of finance. They don't have the luxuries of the clarity by which they wake up in the morning and feel good. So we have an employee at JPS who's phenomenal, who's part of a new initiative at JPS that some may have raised their eyebrows at. Her name is Luanne Smith, and she heads up our volunteer services. And what Luanne has done is a variety of things at JPS that you can lose sight of. You can get caught up in board meetings, and you can get caught up in this and that, and it's really trying to administer a care to a patient. And what she's done is she's brought in to an area where patients have been at JPS for a while, and they're still recovering. She's brought in clay therapy, the ability to work with clay, the ability to do something with your hands. And you ought to see people's faces when they put their hands in clay and they begin to mold something. You ought to see how that rejuvenates them, how it makes them feel better. She's brought therapy dogs to JPS. And many said, you can't have dogs in JPS. You can't have dogs walking through your hospital. We had a lady who the dog visited, the therapy dog visited, Lucy is the dog's name, and Lucy went into the lady's room, and she was so excited. She hasn't gotten out of her bed in months. And she said, if that dog comes back, I'll get out of my bed. Brought the dog back last week, and she walked from one side of the room to the other.
Oh, my goodness.
We have a harpist that comes to JPS, plays music in the ICU where people supposedly can't hear and can't react. It's interesting to see what happens to their blood pressure. It usually goes down when they play the harp. So when you say, I've got an idea, let's bring a harpist, let's bring a dog in, let's bring clay therapy in, you'll get scoffs and laughs. But we've stayed focused to what that means. We've even brought in clowns. We had clowns in yesterday talking to people in the hallways. It's funny how people will smile, how people will laugh, how people will feel better. And it's the things that we on a daily basis take for granted that you need to institute with folks. You got to think about why you're doing those initiatives. And you can't lose sight of the patient that is downtrodden, is embarrassed, is sad, is concerned, has no hope. And that's what we try to do. And that's what the initiatives are all about. That's what the initiative with the University of North Texas is about. It's not about whose politics did we step on, who did we frustrate. It's singly focused to a patient. It's the fact of taking two physician groups and bringing them together and say, we're not going to compete with each other anymore because the competition is at this level and we're losing the care for the patient sometimes. We're recruiting doctors at the same time from two different groups. We're not taking tax dollars and using them to the highest level. And the highest level is collaborate. Get together and work on things. Get together and work on things which people said you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You're on my turf. That's your turf. It's not a matter of turf. It's that single focus to the patient. Everything that you do, you got to figure out how to do that. And sometimes it can be hard. And sometimes people are going to call county judges and governors and county commissioners and city council members and everything else in between. But you got to figure out what you're doing for that patient. And if you can justify that, I'm not going to be daunted by any of those initiatives to help that patient. We are conducting 54 town hall meetings at JPS. We started yesterday morning at 6:30 a.m. and we went until 9 o'clock last night, meeting with employees, asking them, what do you want? What do you see? What would you like to have different at JPS? Comments have been great. They've been positive. We told them about what I updated you on, that we were going to go smoke-free. We would be a smoke-free campus on January 1. There are some people who smoke who don't think that's a grand idea. But I think it's a high level of hypocrisy when you're a healthcare organization and you're smoking. I think it's difficult when somebody comes into the room to administer care to you and they smell like smoke. Just sends a bad message. So we're trying to make JPS cleaner, better, safer, higher levels of quality, and all of those can create some angst at times. But I think if you stay true to your mission, and your mission is to the patient, and your mission is to provide the best services and transform healthcare, we're going to stick to that. So I have and will continue to appreciate y'all's support in that effort. There'll be some things that we need to work out at all times. You got to take the idea and put it into its practical nature and put an idea and a vision on the street, and that's where we'll head with North Texas. Our board now will be involved. Our physicians now will be involved in how best to construct the best relationship you can have so that we administer the best care to patients. If you lose the patient and the focus on that, then just give it up. Don't do what you're doing. Don't wake up in the morning and go to work, because that's what you're there for. And everything else will fall into place. Physician contracts will fall into place. Board will fall into place. Politics will fall into place. Angst will be reduced if you really are administering care to the patients. So I appreciate the willingness that y'all have given me to give you updates. Nothing's done. Nothing's complete. It's all a matter of putting the operational details together to help that patient. And the only dedication I'll give you is I will continue to stay focused on that patient. I'll continue to stay focused on that no matter what the situations are, and I'll always be able to justify, hopefully, to you how we've helped the patient. So we're going to continue to do that, whether we do it with clowns or CEOs or whether we do it with harps. We'll make it better.
You know, I hope that the harps aren't giving a false impression. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You said some of the blood pressures went
Yeah.
down, some of them
Yeah.
went up. That might give you some
Yeah.
indications about the individual.
Exactly. That may be the case. That may be the case.
Stay the course, Mr. Early.
I will. I will stay the course, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Y'all have any questions of me?
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
The only question I have, not really a question, but I guess a favor.
Sure.
I'm asking of you is, you're a very busy man. And once a month you come here and give us briefing. And with me being a data-driven guy, I like to understand the direction that JPS is heading, the goals, the objectives, how you doing, and so forth. If you can give us a quick, brief overview, something that I can sink my teeth into, I would be most appreciative because sometimes, like you said, we have to get down to the weed of things to make sure that things are being handled in a way that is supportive of the direction that we are heading. And with me not so familiar with the healthcare industry, with JPS and so forth, I like to make the most of your time on a monthly basis with us. So if that's at all possible, if it's okay with the court and the board, I'd like to see something a little bit more specific.
Well, do y'all have do you have some sort of a dashboard or something like that that you give your board members? And
We do.
maybe that would be helpful just to pass out, and then if there's any, and if, I don't know how frequently you give that to the board members, but if they could give that to you ahead of time, then you could ask any questions at these monthly meetings when that comes up.
Certainly. I would be happy to do that, happy to provide the data and the information in this type setting, in addition to the meetings that you and I and your staff have on a monthly basis. I'll be happy to do that. The 2-hour meeting that you and I had in your office and Jenny was very helpful, and those are nice dialogues to figure out how best to inform you and anyone else about the inner workings of JPS, its mission, and its direction. And in addition to that, being able to provide information here is something that I strongly support and would be happy to do that. And I think the dashboards are a good idea. Everything at JPS is transparent. It's the matter of trying to communicate that transparency. What does that transparency mean? What do the numbers mean? How do we best inform you so therefore you can inform your constituents? We all want to be on that same page, and I'll make every effort to do that.
Thank you, Robert.
Appreciate the
And I do
suggestion.
want to thank you for the work that you and Dr. Williams did over the past several months. I know it's just beginning now with that process as far as the physician group, but I also want to challenge y'all to continue to look at what we might be able to do in interacting with the other schools that UNT Health Science Center has over there, pharmacy, public health, so many other things that they're doing that would interact directly with the folks that you're seeing on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I think thank you. I appreciate that compliment, and I also think this opens the door for other entities throughout Tarrant County and throughout the nation as well. It creates a collaborative spirit for anybody that provides services that we can gain from, whomever that is, be it a school district, be it a city council, be it any level of government, or if it's a private sector. I think what the message that came out and should have come out of last Thursday is if you can provide benefits to JPS and to the people that fund JPS, we want to do business with you. And we want to do it in a more efficient manner than being separate or being apart or not knowing what you do. And so whether it's any entity in Tarrant County, be it school district or higher education, we want to partner on any program that we can that advances the cause of JPS. The thing that I think is interesting now, and it's really to brag on 6,000 people who aren't here. It's the 6,000 people that work at JPS, not me, because this is not about my personality and me as a CEO. We're getting more phone calls saying, I want to work with JPS. I read this. I saw this. Can we get together with JPS? In my time there, those calls have not been as available as they are now. We get phone calls from other healthcare organizations in the nation saying, how did you do that? How did you do this? Can we come down and visit JPS? And there are people in town saying, we want to do business with JPS, and that hasn't always been the case.
Well, if you look at your family practice residency program and the number of physicians that you have trained that have gone into the rural areas that have stayed here in this area, and the number of students that are currently going through UNT in those different schools, whether it be public health, whether it be pharmacy, we have an opportunity to give them exposure that will help them as they go about servicing citizens and folks throughout the state and throughout our community, our state, and the nation. So keep up the good work, and
Thank you.
y'all continue to work on anything y'all can to strengthen that relationship and that partnership.
Thank you. Any additional questions y'all have? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Then we'll recess our open meeting and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Code.
From 1 to 4:30. It's on my calendar.
Yeah.
You have me by a short.
I'm gonna give this to you, and then I'm just.
Jim, do I don't still need them that on, do I? Because there's more of us.
Microsoft Business Continuity.
I don't see him. Pickus was in with Neil, I think. I'm not sure about Roy.
Closed went fast. That surprised me.
We invite all the department heads and everybody else.
Yeah, everybody was aware.
They don't want to be well.
I know that
Waller must have found somebody else to take the lunch.
actually he said he was going to go and watch it. He's going to watch it. We're live streaming, so a lot of them watch it at their office. That's what he said he was going to do. Who? Wilder did.
Could we encourage him to come to court meetings that way too?
We could make a suggestion.
Not come, but watch it from his office.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
You know what I told Wilder today?
Good color
Said, since we can't make it to lunch today, you can take my staff to lunch. I don't want you to feel left out.
At this time, we haven't returned from our closed session. We will move into our workshops.
Honor, I might just ask everyone that since we are streaming this and we're recording it, that please speak up into the mics. And these mics are not quite as sensitive as the ones in the courtroom, so if you need an additional mic or anything, just let me know. But with that, we'll go ahead and move to the work session, and Ms. Konjovic will turn it over to you, okay?
Okay, thank you. And thanks for inviting us back. We were here a few weeks ago talking about the Pabc Global Wellness Program that the Pabc was considering and building And our board actually approved our wellness program a few weeks ago, so I'm back to tell you a little bit about that program. And also, if you have any questions toward the end, we'll be happy to take those. Dennis Ellis from United Healthcare is here. I've asked him to talk a little bit about healthcare risk and cost, which this will certainly impact over time. But it's really a very brief presentation, very high level, does not have every possible component of the wellness program in it, but enough to give you a good idea of what we're looking at. So as I mentioned, the Pabc and Towers Watson engaged in a project for development of a more rigorous wellness program, compliant with all the various regulatory rules that we have to be compliant with when we have such a program. We did a very large analysis, very in-depth. We had a Pabc Wellness Committee made up of many from Tarrant County, and the recommendation was framed and provided to our board for consideration on May 28th. And on May 28th, the Pabc board unanimously approved the Pabc Wellness Program. The wellness program, just to let you know, is just one part of a long-term strategy to help reduce costs, especially when we think about 2018 and the excise tax. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But truly, what it really is an investment. It's not really an expense item as much as it is an investment item in the future of your employees or families and even your organization. And we know the decisions we're making now will also have an impact on how you attract and retain employees, the health and productivity of your employees, even how you organize and deploy your workforce, and finally, your sustainable cost, emphasis on the word sustainable, which is getting to be the biggest issue of all anymore. We also know that the leadership participation in this program is key for an employee to accept the change in wellness program, and we appreciate Tarrant County's inviting us back to talk about this. I'm not going to give you a lot of fancy slides that give kind of estimated information today, but here's one slide that really does tell us over time what the financial advantage is. Now, clearly, this is not just a financial program, but the financial advantage does give us more opportunity to save and become more effective. And in fact, this slide shows you, for those companies that have effective health and wellness or productivity programs, what their numbers are starting to look like. And you can see, for example, the medical trend tends to be lower, absenteeism tends to be lower, lower medical costs per employee. And again, this is over time. This is not tomorrow or in the first year, in the first month. It's over time, but this is what we tend to see. And then the health risk tends also to be less. And we're going to talk about health risk when Dennis gives his little piece here. So here's the what of the Pabc Wellness Program. First of all, it's a 3-year phased-in rollout. Year one would be 2015. And the program would give an opportunity for all employees, even opt-outs at a smaller level, to be involved in the wellness program. Everybody would have access to a health and wellness employee portal to track their progress year after year. We know that we wanted an integrated program. That being said, our medical claims and our other costs roll up so folks can see how they're doing. And this program would allow those who are enrolled in Pabc medical plans, either the high deductible plan or the PPO plan, to earn points and then incentives each year. Everybody would complete a baseline activity each year. We're going to start out with one, and that is a health risk assessment. And then the remaining points come from a menu of activities I'm going to show you here in a moment. In year one, only employees earn incentives. In year two, covered spouses would also be eligible to allow the employee to earn a second incentive. In other words, we're not giving an incentive just to the spouse. It would go through the employee, but it would be for the employee and the spouse. And then in year three, there will be additional outcomes we're looking at to earn incentives, and we'll talk about those in a moment. Probably the key thing here is we want people to know now in year one what's going to come in year two and year three. And people can prepare and get ready, talk to their physicians, do whatever they need to do to become more engaged in this. Now, this wellness program would also allow an employer to promote their own fitness or activity programs and competitions. And we also know that among PBC groups, there's a great deal of interest in having competitions, let's say from one department here and another department with another PBC group. We've got some interest in that. It might be a nice challenge and some fun and help people get more motivated to participating. Participation in disease management programs by those who qualify is an item that we identified in our plan review last month, which means those that qualify for disease management have heavy need for assistance, and we want to make sure that to participate, they also get rewarded for that participation. This slide gives us just a little picture of what year one would look like. So in other words, the top bar there, gateway to participation. To participate in the wellness program, one would only need to update or confirm their demographics, and then participate in at least one telephone or online health improvement module. Once you do that, you'd be able to access and see the portal. So an opt-out would be able to do that. Folks would get a small reward. That word de minimis keeps popping up, but it means it's not a large reward. It's something, a very token reward, a mug, a poster, a bumper sticker, and we want to put the year on it so that everybody knows you got to do it every year. It's not a one time you did it and shoo, I'm done. You have to do it every year. And so then those who are enrolled in the high deductible or the PPO plan, enrolled through UnitedHealthcare, would have a health risk assessment they would complete. They'd get their points. And then a certain number of core activities, biometric screenings, wellness coaching, a more intense Quit Power tobacco cessation program or healthy weight program, and those that qualify for disease management or the healthy pregnancy program could also earn points doing that. And then in addition, there are any number of 25-point incentives that folks could participate in, all leading up to earning 300 points. It's a 300-point system. Year two then would be the same framework, except now spouse participation would add another opportunity. So if you were on the 300 point with a $300 reward, the employee and spouse could have a $600 reward as long as both achieved their 300 points. And then the baseline points move from 150 to 75. We want to make this so that it takes a little bit more work to achieve a reward year after year. And then in year three, that's when we move to what we call an outcomes-based model. And that means there are going to be some best practices and compliance issues that we want to make sure we're following, but we're looking at specific measurements and outcomes. Now, we're not giving you exactly what those outcomes and measurements are today because they change. And we don't want to tell somebody today they have to meet this number to get a reward, and then 3 years from now the number's changed. So we are making sure that we have experts and those that have the most recent information help us develop those numbers. And that'll be coming through the PBC board to make sure that we have good numbers. We would probably start looking at that next year so that folks have ample opportunity to look at where they need to be. Now, part of healthcare reform is that there are reasonable alternatives for folks who cannot meet the numbers. We talked early on about our wellness program being a culture of better health, because everybody can do at least one thing to better their health. They may not be in excellent health or good health, but they can do at least one thing to better it. And so there will be reasonable alternatives involving the physician to meet, or for those who cannot meet the numbers that would be out there in order to earn a reward.
Diane,
Yes, sir.
how are smokers treated under this plan?
Smokers, if they smoke and they want to quit smoking, they would probably register for the Quit Power program, which provides nicotine replacement products, et cetera, and a program to help them quit. We are in a participation model in year 1 and year 2, which means as long as they participate and complete, they would earn their reward. That is a healthcare reform requirement.
But because of the different alternatives for earning rewards, they could actually earn their points and ignore doing anything with regards to smoking.
Yes, they could.
I'm told by some of NACO's health people that under the Affordable Care Act, there is one class of people that can be treated differently, and that's smokers. That they can be charged a surcharge on their insurance premiums, that you can do all kinds of things to not only provide a carrot but a stick.
You know, Commissioner, we looked at all of that and we evaluated all of that, and when it really comes down to it, you still have to provide them an alternative if they cannot quit smoking, or if their doctor says there's a medical necessity reason why I'm recommending my patient not quit smoking. It could be a psychiatric issue. It could be an addiction. Addiction is considered a medical situation. So, you know, that is the information. And believe you me, everybody's had this discussion. We all kind of feel the same way, but regardless if it's tobacco cessation, weight reduction, other lifestyle issues, there are always going to be ways that somebody's going to be able to say, it shouldn't apply to me. However, I think kind of the logic behind this is, so if a smoker, and by the way, it's not just smoking, it's all tobacco usage, but I'm going to say smoker for our discussion. If a smoker says, I tried and I just couldn't do it, and they completed it, and they do it again the next year, are you really harming anything by giving them the reward for trying it again and achieving the second year? I don't know that I agree or disagree with that, but I do know that under the Affordable Care Act, there has to be a reasonable alternative to that. So at least in year 2...
A reasonable alternative is to quit.
Well, one would think.
And I think the approach that the board has taken thus far is more of a carrot than a stick. And it's, at least that's the direction I think that the board is moving from that standpoint, is trying to incentivize better health choices. And you're right, the thing is to quit, but it may be, you know, at the same time you may be able to say, okay, this person's obese, this person's a smoker. But the one that's a smoker is not obese. I mean, it's equally a choice of the person who's obese to just not eat as much or exercise more. And from an individual health situation, both could be as, or either could be as detrimental to their overall good health as the other is. And so that's why I think...
Except that the ACA doesn't allow you to discriminate against overeaters. It does allow you to discriminate against smokers.
And I think, again, as the board has said, the board has chosen not to discriminate at all, and basically just try to promote, in general, better health.
So everybody gets a certificate of participation.
The first couple of years, yeah, it's pretty easy, but let's put it this way. I mean, we've been paying for people to get their their health risk assessment for 3 or 4 years. We have somewhere around 1,000 of our 4,000 employees who've chosen to do that. So it's, you know, what we're actually proposing to add in the first year of the PEBC program is 2 other things. 1, they've got to do a written assessment. 2, they've got to update their information so that, you know, hopefully people from our insurer type plan can communicate with them, and they've got to get the health risk assessment. So it's not like we're making it easier for those folks who have even been doing it thus far.
What does this written assessment entail?
You going in and answering?
Yeah,
questions?
Dennis, maybe I'll let you talk about what the health risk assessment basically does. I know it's a self-assessment, but I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so the health assessment, I think, is 55. I believe it's about 55 questions. It relates to just general health. It asks the question: do you know what your blood pressure, your height, weight, cholesterol? It wants to know what those figures are, and then it also wants to take into account your daily habits. Are you? Does your job require you to be, active? Do you wear your seatbelt when you drive? I mean, do you smoke? Do you consume alcohol? It's looking at, are you stressed? Mental health, physical health, and so it's 55 questions designed to give you kind of an overall perspective, or sort of picture of your health, sort of in general, and as well as related to your age and your demographic.
So I'm going to move forward so we can come back, Commissioner, if you have any other questions. So let's talk about the incentive amount here. In 2014, we know that employers plan to spend an average of $594 per employee on wellness-based incentives. Now, that does not suggest you should spend $594 on incentive. These are groups that have had plans in place for various periods of time, most of them long-term. And it doesn't even talk about other rewards, contributions from employers that apply or not. For this particular program, we know that a uniform incentive amount among the Pbc groups is really important so we can measure the return on investment and how people are doing, and really how incentives drive the behavior change. And so the employer would have to tell us which of these two incentive options is preferred by your group. Option one would be a $300 incentive for completion of the program, or option two is $600. Now, option two may not be appropriate for all groups, but we did it that way because we also want to measure, we're doing a lot of case study work on this particular program. We also want to measure if anyone does take that $600, is that driving any changes better than a $300 reward?
Do either one of these include the $240 we provide all of our employees for their?
Not currently.
Okay, so if we would choose option one, it would be $300 if they achieve their 300 points, and the 250 or 240.
If the court decides to leave it that way, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I believe that's a recommendation that you all have talked about making the first year.
Yes.
We also want to make sure that there aren't other additional wellness compensation items other than de minimis items, obviously, to make sure that we can measure the impact of these programs. We also know that if you choose a $600
Let me ask you something, and
yes,
then
sir.
I'll quit asking questions, but we talk about measurement issues. Is this going to be one county versus the other, or is it going to be a baseline and how we improve from that baseline?
Well, it's probably going to be I don't want you to think you're always competing against another county, although we'll use that as a benchmark. We have 5 groups, all with the same plan, all with the same wellness program. We can do a lot of measurement there, but we also have to look at the age and gender factor of your group, the claims you incur, what types of claims you incur. So it's a wide
The only reason I bring
range.
that up is because we've had our wellness program for over 10 years. So I think you can just look at our expenses that the level of our health is improving. But I mean, it's part of the wellness effort.
But if you look at our statistics, our people aren't, I'm not sure the statistics would show that our people aren't any healthier than the other participants in our plan. If anything, I think our cost is higher than most of the other ones.
Our participants are an older generation than some of them. I think we have the oldest group.
You're all correct. I mean, you have the oldest. I believe your age, gender, demographic is the oldest of the PEBC. When we compare you to all of the public entities in our book of business in Texas, you are about 10%. So we would expect your claims, if the average is for that block of business is 1, we would expect your cost based on your demographic to be 10% higher, just simply because of the population that makes up your employee workforce.
We're also talking about the reward to be paid in either cash, which would be a taxable reward, or through an employer contribution to either a flexible spending account or a health savings account, which currently is a non-tax item, not in premium reduction. We believe that this is expected to increase participation and engagement. I'll just give you a couple of illustrations. You know, it's almost the opposite of contributing to, let's say, a 401k, where you're encouraged to put money in through payroll because it's easy, you can just forget about it, it builds. We don't want this to be something people forget about. We want it to be a reward to be tied as soon as possible to the achievement of the reward. We're talking possibly quarterly or twice a year to make sure that people don't have to wait till the end of the year to be compensated for something they maybe did 6-9 months ago. We're looking at all those things to encourage participation and to make sure that folks have an opportunity to feel the reward for what they're doing. Now, we talked about a 300-point system. So whether you choose option 1 or option 2, it's still 300 points, except you can see here that option 1, it would be $1 per point. It would not exceed $300 maximum in a plan year. And option 2 would be $2 per point. It would not exceed $600 maximum per plan year. That's for an employee reward in year 1. In year 2, you can just double that to $600 or $1,200. And option 3, obviously, is one. This is one that you can choose to do as well, although we hope you don't. Groups can also choose to just say, I'm not interested. So if your county said, we're not interested, we're not going to participate, you could do that too.
The bottom line on the deal is you're either going to qualify for the 300 or 600 or you're not.
Correct.
So you may get 1,000 points, you're only going to get $300. If you don't get 300 points, you're not going to get anything.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. So I'm going to turn it over to Dennis for a moment and talk about the risk and what we're really trying to do with the wellness program.
So these are numbers that we showed at the health plan review in I believe it was early May. And so what we do, we like to look at your population in 3 different categories. We put a healthy population. So this is, believe it or not, this is about 53 to 54% of your population that spend on average less than $90 PM. That's per member per month in the plan. And then you have a low to medium population. So these would be your individuals who diagnosed with some type of chronic condition, managing it well. They're spending on average about $413, $414 a month. And then your high risk, which is you can see very drastically the cost per month changes for those individuals that are in that high risk category. And so the reason that you're doing this, and I'll break it out, so you've got about 87% of your medical spend comes from the low to high risk. So almost 90% of what the plan is spending is coming out of those 2 buckets. Your healthy population is about 13% of what you're spending. And the goal of this is to maintain health status, encourage preventive care, age-appropriate screenings, education, and really awareness. So we want to keep the folks who are healthy, and we want to keep the folks who are at low risk effectively managing that condition and understanding what it takes to do that. And your high-risk population, that's really what your disease management programs are in place for. And you have those programs in place. But one of the things that we're going to do with this program is take advantage of the ability to incent participation in disease management programs. So you've purchased this. You know that these are your biggest cost drivers for your population. This is something that you wanted to address, and you put these programs in place. Over the last 2 years, we've tried to identify or reach out to about 1,200 employees to say, hey, there's something going on. We'd like to have a conversation. We would like to engage you in a discussion. And we're only able to reach about half of those individuals. And so we've got about a 50% success rate in getting them to return our phone calls and to speak with us. So that's one of the things that we want to improve is we're going to actually incent. I think you saw that, but incent participation in these disease management programs. So this program is really designed to hit individuals in every one of these different stages, whether you're healthy or you're at high risk dealing with a chronic condition. We want everyone to be able to participate and see value, and we want the county to see value in that program. And again, we talked about, I think the discussion was already about the population. You do have an older population. The other thing that we talked about in that meeting is you have an older population, but even trying to level set that across your public sector peers, we know that this population carries a higher incidence of chronic disease than we would expect even with that slightly older population. And these are the items that sort of lead that: diabetes, hypertension, coronary artery disease, and congestive heart failure. You can see that list. And so these are, again, things that when I was here earlier, I talked about modifiable health risk, right? You know, you can take action and reduce your risk for having a chronic disease or transferring into sort of that high-risk category. And so that's, again, a big reason why we're looking to implement this type of wellness program.
Question.
Yep.
Can you tie those problems to specific causes? Maybe, let's say diabetes, of all the population within Canton County that have diabetes, can you attribute overweight, obesity to it?
So, yeah, so diabetes is, I mean, we know that type 2 diabetes is directly related to, you know, inactivity and diet. I mean, we know that
But what I'm saying, can you arrive at a specific number? Say 40% of the diabetic population is caused by overweight. If we can do that, then we can measure the effectiveness of the wellness program that 5 years later, that percentage is now 20% instead of 30%.
we can do a couple.
Smoking, we can do the same thing with smoking.
Yeah,
A particular disease like asthma, for example, is caused by smoking, and we say 80% of the patient group is caused by smoking. Then perhaps we can focus education and other programs to that population and measure the effectiveness of such a program.
No, absolutely. So we're able to identify individuals who are what we call pre-diabetic, so those at risk for developing type 2 diabetes, and those have risk factors. So we're able to sort of identify and say, okay, as of this date, 12% of your population, we would consider those individuals to be pre-diabetic or at risk for developing diabetes. So the goal of the wellness program would be to attempt to reduce that and lower the individuals that are at risk for conversion to type 2 diabetes. Is that what
Exactly. And
yeah.
Are you going to be able to give us that sort of report?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be one of the things that we look at. So we're going to look at all of these things. We're going to look at, again, the wellness program won't cure these, right? But what we want to do is look at, okay, how are people better managing the condition, right? Are our compliance rates going up? You know, are we getting people to quit smoking? What is the population, you know, what percentage of our population is obese? Have we been able to drop it from 60% of our population down to 48? Those are all things that we can measure through the health assessment, which you're putting on here, and through claim data.
And remember that the first two, because of the fact that we're trying to move toward a more responsible time, and we're basically going the first 2 years to where we're not asking them to make any improvement in order to qualify. So that, but we're giving them plenty of time to understand that beginning in year 3, in order really to qualify or to get any incentive out of this, you're going to either have to be within certain established parameters or working toward getting there and showing proof each year that you're making progress toward getting there in order to be able to qualify for the incentives.
Right. So being able to measure these things, the outcome.
Yep.
Okay. Will allow us to be able to tell whether which strategy is more effective. Is it the carrot, is it the stick, or is it a combination of both?
Absolutely.
Well, that's one of the...
But we don't want to run all 3 approaches commingle with one another, because that will dilute the accuracy of the measurement.
Well, you have to think about year one. It's going to be trying to get information from a health risk assessment. And year two, hopefully people have gone in, had their screenings, done these things that we haven't had before. And so by that point, in year three, we'll then see what these numbers are telling us. So each year, we're going to be looking at our return on investment a little bit differently because it's getting harder as each year goes by. But you're absolutely right, Commissioner. We don't want to just throw randomly things out there. It's why we're doing this under a case study type of approach, so we can see what interventions caused something to happen. Is that the only thing that caused it? Did our age change? Did we start retiring people and hiring people at a different stage of life? We have all kinds of factors that could be giving us information that we want to make sure we don't make some false assumptions here. So we are definitely doing this under a case study approach so we can see exactly what we did, what did our population look like, how did their behaviors change, what kinds of things caused it to change, and then translate that into the different disease states. How does that rank across our state and our community, look at it from a different point of view. So I think we're saying in a long-winded way here, I am anyway, that we have a lot of work to do to try to measure return on investment. And this is one of the hardest things to measure in a wellness program is return on investment. So we want to make sure that we have firm data, that we're looking at data from more than just one side. And so we can see, is this making any difference?
And I think also going back, one of the other things that we're going to need to remember, from the folks that I've talked with, the biggest concern that most of the employees have is that we, the county, on this side of the firewall, will be aware of what their health issues are. And so, and this almost kind of integrates in with our whole strategic plan that we talked a little bit about this morning, improving communication. I think the thing that we've got to be, the message we need to be putting out from the county is that we want to help you be healthier, but we don't really want to know, nor will we know, anything about what your health issues are. But when you get a call from someone at United Healthcare or someone on that other side of that firewall, that they have looked at what you've submitted, so you can submit it and know that it's confidential, but that they may look at that and say, okay, we see an issue here. We're going to try to communicate with the employee to make them aware of the issue and what they can do to prevent that from moving to the next stage. Or if they're in that, you know, it's kind of like if they're healthy, we don't want them to move to low. If they're low, we certainly don't want them to move to high. We would really like for the low to move to healthy and for the high to move to low and then to healthy. But the biggest deterrent, the biggest roadblock we're going to have, I think, and that's been proven in the past, is that our employees' perception that when they fill out this document that everybody in the county knows that they filled it out and what their health issues are. So it's almost a two communication. One, we've got to communicate that we don't know, and, oh, by the way, when you get this call, answer the phone, return the phone call, because this is the other side of the firewall trying to help you stay healthy.
Right. This is not on an individual basis, the information that we'll be giving you. It'll be summary. Well, also, the only information that you will get on a regular basis is your payroll people will know who's earning rewards so they can make the payment. That's it. So everything else will give us enough information to know what's going on, but just as the judge mentioned, it is completely confidential, and the employer will have no role in seeing who has got what condition in their family. And so, you know, as you mentioned, you've had a wellness program for almost 10 years, and other PBC groups have had various versions of them. We know there's a great value in having one rigorous, compliant program, especially in advance of the 2018 excise tax that's coming under healthcare reform. And so we've kind of noted there are some key areas. The engagement piece, the potential for greater employee engagement, just as the judge mentioned about the privacy concerns, that's alleviated up front. The compliance piece, it's more than just the Affordable Care Act. It's the American with Disabilities Act. It's the EEOC. There are other agencies and regulatory rules that are complex and kind of bump up against this. The key with the Pabc plan is that it will all be compliant, reviewed constantly to make sure that we're in compliance. The cost and budgeting of this, we know there are economies of scale with consistent programs and sharing resources that we've had in the past. The more groups that opt into this program, the better pricing we'll have in terms of an administration fee. And we also know that when we come out here in a few weeks and talk about accruals for 2015 rates, we're going to develop the accrual rate, which will include the administrative fee. Obviously, you'll budget the rewards separately, but the accruals themselves will have it lined out so you can see the wellness admin fee in there. We're doing that for a very important reason, because we don't want to put anything in there that's going to increase the cost of your plan artificially, especially in light of the excise tax coming in 2018. The implementation and integration, I put on their paperless. If the world truly was paperless, but I can tell you that we are going to be using established information channels we already have in place. Many of your employees are familiar with our bridge data file process, which is a way for us to get data from you, a way for us to give data to vendors. We know that the employers will want periodic points of achievement, and we want to make sure that's in front of everybody all the time. And finally, we'll have a development of one plan document that each group will have. And so if you want to compare how does another employer do with this exact same plan, you'll be able to do that. Obviously, there are a few differences that we'll point out, but for the most part, you'll be able to do that. And as far as measurement, we've talked a lot about this. The benchmarks we'll be using year over year, the competitions that we think will help promote some excitement and engagement. We really think that this is a plan that could be used to perhaps be the model for the state of Texas public sector groups in rolling out a wellness program, keeping it, monitoring it, encouraging it, communicating it, all the things that we want to do to help keep your population healthy and happy, and we all have the same goal there. I should note that we do have a few more administrative rules, like how to treat a mid-year hire. We want to document that. And the communication strategy, obviously, is critically important. I'm already working on a Pabc wellness program guide that can be used for each group, and then a section to include your own information. So what do we need? What we need is, we need Tarrant County to opt in. We hope you opt in. We would love it if you would opt in. You've been a key player in this whole program, this whole process, and nothing would make us happier to have Tarrant County leading the charge here. But we need that decision as soon as possible, hopefully within a couple of weeks. And when you opt in, that'll replace your current wellness program effective January 1, 2015. And certainly we recommend you do, but that's clearly your decision. We would need to know if you prefer to opt in at option level 1 or 2. And there's one more thing we need to know, and that is we're going to allow each group to determine from a couple of ways how you want a reward paid. Do you want the employee, does Tarrant County want to choose to let the employee choose cash or flex or health savings account? Or does Tarrant County want to pick the way it's going to be compensated? You can do it either way. We can administer it either way. I'll probably give you a little worksheet that'll say these are the decisions I need from you. Very simple two-line document. But that's what we're looking for. We are trying to finalize our pricing on this very quickly and get things started on the integration of it, the implementation of it, and have it done in time that people are talking about it long before annual enrollment.
And now that Diana's finished with her presentation, we've got some information we're going to provide to you or talk about where we're comparing our current plan design and the plan design that's been presented here, and then some cost estimates. So I'm going to slide this laptop over here. And I'm really bad with laptops. So, that didn't work. Come on now. There we go.
And then go over
There we
and
go.
hit.
Yeah. So what we've done is we have done a comparison of each parts of the plan, and with our program currently, all of our full-time county employees, both opt-in and opt-out in our health care plan, can participate. Right now, we had about 53 people that were opt-outs that participated. Under the PEBC program, for the full incentive, the $300 or the $400 or $600 plan, it will be only the active employees that are part of the United Healthcare Plan. The opt-outs will be part of the Gateway program and the initial part of the program, so that they wouldn't participate in the whole of the program. So the Gateway part, again, for the county here currently is a health risk assessment, questionnaire, and a biometric. So everybody has to participate in one of those right now in order to participate in the county's program. For the Gateway, or the participation initial piece for the PBC, of course, it'll be update and confirm your demographics, do a telephonic online health improvement module, and then that health risk assessment questionnaire. So a little bit different. And then as I try to scroll
Robin,
down.
is
Yes, sir.
the online health improvement module, does that get you one of the 25 points down below, or?
Actually, it is, I think it's worth, yeah, thank you, Tina, it's worth 100 points. That part is under that participation plan. Hang on, let me get to her handout again.
So the first year, that qualifies you, you get the award, whatever the award is, by just doing that first part.
You talking about in the PEBC plan? Actually, and Diana, you're welcome.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand
Yeah,
the
but the
question.
PEBC, no, that's okay. The PEBC plan has that initial Gateway program where you get a de minimis reward, and that's for updating your demographics and participating in the one telephonic, and you have to do those to get that de minimis. But then to do the baseline activity, which is where you join into the incentive program,
You still
it's
gotta get
100.
300 points.
It's 100 points for the health risk assessment, and then the biometrics is worth 150 points.
Yeah, year one, we want make sure everybody knows their numbers.
Correct. And so with regard to the rewards, the difference is right now we do give $50 for participation in the health risk assessment and biometric event. And then we actually have multiple levels that range from 150 to 300 based on your how you participate in the program or the standards you meet. And then, of course, as Diana had presented, there are two options, a $300 plan and a $600 plan, and it's basically all or nothing. You get the points and you get the full 300 or the full 600. There's not a staggering. And then as she's outlined the program components, we currently have 3 meeting physical standards. We have physical activities for all levels, beginners to advanced. They do have to attend some number of educational sessions that we offer both in person and online. And then, of course, we have a variety of miscellaneous events and challenges. And really the programs are somewhat similar in that way. They've got some more disease management. Of course, they have their healthy pregnancy program, the smoking cessation program. So that's just a little bit of the comparison. Of course, we do not allow our spouses to participate currently. So we've also put together for you a, hopefully, kind of an administrative cost comparison. Let me see if I can get this one to open up.
Try to hit that little.
Well, see, we tried that earlier, and I don't think that will, especially because that's the Word document one. So, yeah, we tried that earlier, and if somebody's smarter than the IT guy and I that worked on this, it doesn't have I'm going to open it up more here. So we did a comparison of some administrative costs. Right now, we are paying the Plano Medical Services company that conducts our health risk assessments. They do the questionnaires, they come and do the biometrics. We pay them a little over $82,000 a year. We spend about $57,500 on the rewards for the health risk assessment, so that totals about $139,700. The anticipated per employee per month fee for the $300 plan is $3, and that comes up to about $126,500. So that first year, those kind of basic administrative costs are a little bit less expensive if we use the $300 plan. Now, we, of course, have some additional, we have our health risk assessment gifts that we give. We give a T-shirt, also in addition to participation. We have printing for our WOW brochures. We have a variety of other forms, and then we have some other de minimis kinds of things we give out for various challenges. We will keep some communications documents and probably some de minimis gifts that we might, because our opt-out people cannot participate in the incentive part, we'll probably have some things for them that will give some de minimis gifts. So I don't think all of those costs will go away. And then if you look at the rewards, we currently have the levels of rewards. We had about 437 of our employees that got a reward out of the 1,300 that start at the health risk assessment. Okay, and United Healthcare anticipates that 30 to 40% of our employees will participate. So we took the 30%, about 1,000 employees at $300. Obviously, that's $300,000. So as you can see, the grand total there difference is between $265,500 and $437,800. So that first year, should we choose the $600 plan, then the $300 plan, it would be, we would incur some cost, obviously. And then we've gone on and just given you some general information about our flexible spending account. We right now have 402 employees that we gave the 4,000, I'm sorry, thank you. 4,002 employees that we gave the $240 flexible spending account money, and we've given that for some time. We're actually the only PEBC employer that gives that money to our employees. And
Not anymore.
oh, we're not anymore? I thought we were. Okay. Okay.
You don't, we have another group that gives it to a small subsection of
Okay. And so that cost is nearly $1 million. And we have 488 opt-outs that we give $1,200 to, and that's almost 586,000, yes. With regard to forfeitures, as you know, of that money we give employees can also put their own money in, and then some of the WOW rewards, the wellness program rewards, have gone into that. So our average forfeitures, that's the money that employees did not spend, that they returned basically back to the county over the last 10 years or so, is about $300,000. Now,
Per year.
Per year on average. Now, this last year there was some changes in the way that flexible spending accounts were counted at the end of the year, and it's my understanding this is a one-time thing. So the estimated forfeitures for this year is about $99,000.
You know, your average actually, I didn't bring those numbers, but when the Affordable Care Act capped that at 2,500 as a maximum employee election, your forfeitures dropped below this average.
Yeah. And they may have, we took just, over the years.
And the rollover amount, this is the year that you'd probably see the least from that, because that first year of it got pushed 1 year back.
Mhm.
So it may not affect you as much in subsequent years.
So that is the cost of the $300 plan. Obviously, the $600 plan on that, right?
The estimated cost on this PBC biometric.
Oh, yes, sir. So, you know, they have a part, that initial part of their wellness program, they want you to go and get biometric screenings. But let's say you don't go to your actual physicians to do that and don't do an annual physical and gather that information. They anticipate that they will have some sort of offering of a health risk assessment event sponsored by United Healthcare, and somebody stop me if I'm
Yeah, no, you're. It's just so we're happy to come on site and do biometric screening. So part of what we do is we're able to identify via claim data if somebody did go to the doctor and have that lab work done, that biometric event. So we're able to automatically sort of determine that and provide the appropriate points to that individual for achieving that action. But if an entity chooses to do so and says, okay, I really like having a biometric event, I've got a lot of young, healthy guys in this department that don't go, I don't want to force them all to go to the doctor. If I say, okay, we want to come out and have a screening event for this department, 200 people, the cost for that is $50 per screening, and then all of that data feeds into the wellness portal and would give them the appropriate points, and would also, the lab values would feed into the health assessment so that they wouldn't have to input that data. That's what that $50 charge is, if you choose to have that event.
So that would be in comparison to, say, somebody going to the doctor, a $50 charge
Right.
versus the physician charge we could have on site. There will be a few events like that.
$50. Is it ours or United?
It would be ours. That could be an additional cost. Obviously, it could be significant if we have a lot of employees that choose to go that method as opposed to an annual physical method.
Or another way to look at it, though, is if it costs, let's say, $130 to go to the doctor for that, and it replaces the $130.
And for example, for me, if I participate in our current wellness program, I'm required to participate in the health risk assessment, but I'm an individual that also goes for an annual physical. So right now, the county's paying both for me. I'm going for my annual physical plus to participate in our health risk assessment. And we've talked about doing some changes with that with our current wellness program, but obviously that's all on hold, depending on what the court will do now. So this would allow us to only have that charge one place or the other.
And I would think, at least, my thought would be that whatever we decide on this, if we decide to opt in and to go forward with this, that this cost will be coming out of that money that we already have set aside in our self-insurance program, and would be covered to some extent by the reserve that we've got over there.
And one of the things, so I also have a spreadsheet that's the $600 plan. It looks exactly the same with the exception that at a $600 plan, instead of that being $437,805, it's $744,130.
And the only thing that I would ask about that is the fee went up because, as I understand it, because you think there'll be a higher volume of people participate, and so that's why the administrative fee went up. But you didn't increase your assumed participant rewards, the numbers. You left both of them at 1,000.
Correct. And I just, was trying to kind of compare apples to apples. Obviously, that second year, we add in spouses. Are we going to get, if we have 1,000 employees, are we going to get 1,000 spouses? I don't know that we've really talked about that, whether United Healthcare has a feeling for where you'll get that full participation. And of those 1,000, how many have spouses? And so, or does that spouse have a program with their own employer that may already be okay for them to participate in? So we didn't, you're right, we didn't take that into consider or put that into this sheet just so that we could compare apples to apples.
But Judge, to your point, it probably does make sense to increase that 1,000 up a bit for the $600 level.
I would use that, 30 to 40. I would use the higher. I would use the 40.
Of course, right now, we offer up to 300, and we get, as I said, 437 employees.
We've been pretty aggressive, I think, in our numbers.
And so we're not anywhere near that 1,000. We have about 1,300 or so that participate in our health risk assessment, so there's a real drop-off in actually completing the rest of the program.
And we considered the 30 to 40% to be success in year one. You may not get 1,000, but that would be success in year one.
In our program, we're trying to shift towards paperless, but it's not completely there. And so some parts of our program are a little tedious still for people to turn in their points, and we're working to improve that. So that could have impacted the fact that only 437. Also, we've tried to broaden what kinds of challenges, physical activity. You may have somebody that plays tennis every day. Well, they don't really fit our challenges, and so we're trying to broaden those. And with these programs, it may be broad enough that those people will join in and participate. So that's why we use that 1,000. One of the things that has been discussed was this $960,000 that we currently give to employees in the FSA contributions. Is that first year in 2015, should we choose to opt in, continue to give those employees that money and possibly choose the $300 plan that first year, as that plan is just a participation plan and not quite as stringent, and possibly consider in the second year going to the $600 plan and shifting and stopping the awarding of the 242 employees, which would shift that $960,000 to help cover some of that cost. That's one way to help cover some of the cost, should you all want to go that route. Obviously, that's up to you all. And
but if you do that, you create a sense that there's not really any incentive.
well,
Taking money from one pot and move it to another.
with the exception that they currently get that 240 for doing that, they don't have to do anything to earn that. So we would push them to have to earn anything they got.
Okay, so if we're going to give the employee $240 in flexible money,
Which we currently do.
right, and we don't ask anything of them, then it shouldn't be in the wellness program. You should label it some sort of a
And it's not
financial assistance.
It is not in the, it's not part of the wellness program. It's part of the benefits program. But as those two become more married, that was a way we believed that if we stopped that would help offset some of the costs.
So what's the logic of continue the FSA contribution this year?
You're talking about in 2015. Why don't we stop it immediately? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the logic behind
I think
not doing it or doing it?
I think some of the logic of continuing to do it for one more year would give all those employees a little bit of a warning that it was going to go away. There are a lot of people that do use that money and spend that money and count on that money for paying for various eligible costs. And so that there wouldn't be kind of a surprise, not that we don't have some time
Especially
to.
with the rollover, they could have it already targeted for first quarter 2015.
So, and then obviously the removing of it would be that mindset of make them earn everything that they're getting. And I want to
And Commissioner, I think a part of the history of the 240, and actually it's in 24 cents.
Yes, I know.
When that benefit was, when we rolled out flexible spending accounts initially more than 15 years ago, the county did not contribute to employee accounts. So when we rolled it out, we communicated what a flexible spending account was, explained the tax benefits, and we didn't have very good participation. And if you recall, this account has what they call the use it or lose it provision. And so because it was new, because employees were afraid they were going to lose money, we didn't have very good participation in the accounts initially. The court had some real concerns that enough employees were not taking advantage of these accounts. And so the court then made a decision to begin contributions into employee accounts, really just to get so that employees would be more comfortable with the accounts. And so we have seen our participation increase. Employees, after all these years, understand the accounts, aren't as reluctant to put their own money into the account. And so, anyway, that's just sort of part of the history. And I think maybe part of the discussion is, have we contributed long enough? Have we addressed that concern? And maybe we have and maybe we haven't. But have we addressed that reluctance long enough? So maybe, as Robin pointed out, the $960,000, whatever it is, $960,000, maybe a better use of that money, maybe, is to really encourage more participation on the wellness side, again, as we begin to have conversations about integrating the wellness and the medical plan. And it's just a question. It's a question for the court. Do we feel like employees have had long enough to understand flexible spending accounts, how they work, the benefits, so that now we can shift that money someplace else?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Are the costs associated with this wellness plan part of the calculations for the Cadillac?
Well, I don't know if
It's why we have it separately on the accrual rate, and we don't have the answer whether the $3 fee will be, at this point, it's not addressed. So we have it separately in case we have to find a different way to compensate it. We have it separately listed. Obviously, if we get guidance that says, yes, any wellness activity must be included, we'll get a whole list of things we'll have to do. But we also may hear, part of the Affordable Care Act was to allow employers more flexibility on wellness programs like this to encourage healthy populations. So we're not quite sure exactly where that's going to land just yet. We expect that at some point, but today we don't have the answer.
So we may, in fact, by doing this, be adding to our Cadillac tax
Well,
liability.
the theory is that by doing this, you're going to prevent people from moving into the $2,000 a month category in cost and stay maybe somewhere between $100 and $400. So you may be reducing. The goal is to hopefully pull that cost down because people will get care and treatment for things that'll keep them from getting.
But that answer ignores the other piece of what constitutes the Cadillac tax, which is benefits design in the first place. And that's more of the calculation than
Well, this is a
utilization is.
This is a separate program than our benefit plan. We're taking every piece of our benefit plan that we can, the data and the information, and using it so that we can calculate all those costs. But the fee itself, the $3 fee itself, is not a plan design item. It's a separate fee that, frankly, if we heard tomorrow that it has to be included and we couldn't find any other way to save $3 per employee per year, it would actually be more than $3 per employee per year, we would have to adjust somewhere to keep doing it if you wanted to continue it.
And until we hear otherwise, or until they give us a definite, here's what's included,
this is
everybody's telling us that it will be based upon what your rate is that you charge someone who's left. Tell me what that word is.
The COBRA rate.
The COBRA rate. Less, it'll be 98% of whatever your COBRA rate is.
Correct.
And so until we hear some specific regulations or policies, that's the number it would be. And so whatever we charge someone who leaves is what they'll determine our Cadillac tax off of.
Do we have any clue as to what we would save with a successfully implemented program? Did I hear right that we're looking at 30-40% participation?
Well, maybe you remember in that earlier slide, that colorful slide that showed that employers that have successful wellness programs can save an estimated of $1,600.
Right.
It kind of runs the gamut depending on the.
Yeah. But I mean, we're talking about spending, am I right here, $265 up to $750, and then there's some other issues here. But are we? I mean, it sounds to me like the savings could be huge compared to spending a little less than $1 million.
I mean, I think what we found, and we've looked at a number of case studies. I'll take my own organization for an example. Healthcare trend, everybody who's looked at a newspaper has heard the phrase healthcare trend, right? And so you've seen those trend numbers average anywhere between 8 and 12% over the last 10 years. And so what we look at in our case studies, so customers who have adopted these types of programs, incentivizing, hey, we're going to generate awareness. We want people to go to the doctor. We want people to understand what the conditions that they have, and we want our people to help manage them more effectively. And so our own organization, we started this a decade ago, and I think our annual trend has been about 0.5% year over year compared to that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% that most of our employers are facing. City of Arlington is another local example of a city who took this approach 6 or 7 years ago, and they have seen the same outcome. So when you start talking about, again, We're looking for strategies that reduce that year-over-year medical inflation. Educating your population, understanding the underlying conditions that your population has, and getting them to more effectively manage or take steps to prevent a disease progression. That can have a very significant impact on your claim spend, and we're happy to share some of those case studies if that's something you're interested in looking at.
Yeah, we'll be doing that as part of our rollout, periodic information. How are you doing? What did it look like elsewhere at this point? So we don't wait till the whole year's over and say, well, why didn't we look at this sooner, kind of thing. So, yeah, we'll be looking at that all along.
Robin, I have one question before you go back to that. When we talk about the opt-outs,
Yes, sir.
so that's currently, we provide $240 plus $100 a month. So it's $1,440 to our opt-outs. Is this going to impact that?
I think that's something that we have to discuss, and the court will have to discuss. Diana and I had a conversation earlier about this, about how we address the opt-outs, since they can't really participate. Should we opt in to the PEBC program? Got a lot of opt-in, opt-out language here. But should we choose to join into the PEBC wellness program, and the opt-outs cannot participate in the full incentive portion because they're not part of United Healthcare, obviously.
What portion can they participate
They
in?
can do the gateway participation.
That means, but that's not the $240.
No, sir. They can't get any financial incentive. It was de minimis. And so do we do something for our opt-outs independent, and what impact might that have on a variety of issues?
And I think one of the things to look at maybe in regards to the opt-outs is let's separate the 240 from the 1,200. The 1,200 is what we pay someone who comes to us and says, we're not going to be in your insurance program, and we're going to provide you proof that we are covered through insurance. The 240 is something we basically are giving to every employee for, as Commissioner Wynn mentioned a few minutes ago, for basically doing nothing, just being an employee. So I think that as it comes to both of those numbers, the court has a decision as to whether they want to continue to do that. And I think they can do it under either one of, either or both.
Yeah, I mean, the 240 doesn't need to be part of the wellness program. You
No,
can actually just add it to.
But I think what we're saying, though, to some extent, or what was indicated earlier, is that for the first year, they'd like to leave, they don't want to change both of them at the same time, so they'd like to, they're recommending, I hear, the $300 incentive for the first year, leave the 240 in place, leave the 1,200 in place. Potentially the second year and years thereafter, instead of just giving the 240, again, because it's a health-related type of, it's for health expenditures, is encourage everyone to earn the 240. And they can earn that by getting their 300 points, which would then equate to $600. And oh, by the way, we're adding spouses, or they're recommending that spouses be added, so it would be even more than that for the opt-outs. Now, let's take specifically the opt-outs. They can get the de minimis gifts, who cares? T-shirts, cups, who cares? Now, the second year, if you went to taking that 240 away, then the opt-outs would lose the ability to be able to get the 240. It still does not say that as a court, we might not say, you still get your 1,200. The opt-out portion is still there, and we're going to keep it there, and you can still pick up that $1,200 as far as an opt-out. The 240 is now going to be something that has to be earned, and I don't think we have a way for them to pick up, or for them to get the remainder of that, or to get that 240.
Do we know how many opt-outs?
488.
And
So it's about a little more than 10% of our population.
TK, we were just, I think the point of providing information about the number of opt-outs, how much revenue, really was just to identify a potential source of revenue if the court wants to tap into those revenues to support us on the financial side on the PEBC wellness program. Again, that's not something that the court has to do, but if you're interested in the county participating in the PEBC wellness program, we were simply trying to identify revenue sources that we might, again, be able to tap into to offset any additional costs that we would have.
I understand what you're saying.
I don't want to see that $240 taken away from opt-outs, period. That was part of the package for opting out, the 100 plus the 240.
Correct.
100 a month plus the 240. That would be just like saying that your insurance premium is going up by that amount. That's a benefit that I have had here at the county for 28 years. The benefit the county has had is you have not paid my insurance bill for 28 years.
That's right. And to be
So,
quite honest.
no, I'm not interested in
So then what
seeing
that would,
go away.
what that would basically say would be is if we said to everybody else, you're going to have to earn your 240, but we're going to raise the opt-out amount from 1,200 to 1,440.
And
If that's
Judge,
what you want to do, that's fine, as long as you still continue paying the 1,440.
And a lot of that may be, and what we don't know is how much of that's being forfeited back anyway. I mean, the net cost of the 1.5 million that we're currently paying, we're getting back about I guess we're getting back about 100,000 is what we ended up averaging in 13, but 13 was a special because it allowed the 500. Prior to that, it was about 300,000 a year was being forfeited.
When you go to a pill doctor like I do, you take a lot of prescriptions, and very little, if any, goes back.
and to be quite honest, when we talked about the opt-outs, we were looking at how could we allow an opt-out to have some level of participation. We didn't even think about, what should their reward be for an opt-out. Certainly, there may be ways we could work with that in year 2. But for year 1, your approach is, if you do choose that one where you keep it just like you have today plus the 300, it may allow us to look at what could we do, because opt-outs would have access to the portal. And that was the key. I mean, we don't know what their opt-out coverage is, although to be an opt-out, you have to have comparable coverage to what the county offers. So many of those folks may already be doing a wellness program, but we want them to have access to the portal. So we haven't even looked at that particular piece just yet. We just wanted to make sure we included them.
The $1,200 opt-out makes sense to me, okay? It makes sense in a way that without that incentive, some of all 448 opt-out may opt in, and that will ultimately cost the county more money.
For $1,200, I'd be
So
more
that
than glad for
incentive
everybody
makes
to opt
sense.
out.
Okay?
Maybe.
So that incentive makes sense. Okay?
That
For
sounds
me
like it
personally,
does,
okay.
But, truthfully, that's a whole different topic. But I can say the one thing that can happen, and happens here quite frequently, is with a qualifying event. Let's say you're an opt-out because you're on your spouse's plan. Spouse loses job, allows spouse and employee to come back in, go in and out, and in and out. And you have that a lot here. And so it's not that they stay opt-outs forever, so although certainly, Commissioner, in your case it may be, but you have a large number of people that go in and out, come back and forth between the plans. So you are, when they have something happen and this plan becomes primary, you've lost any opt-out.
And I'm assuming that go forward as existing conditions now become a moot point, pre-existing conditions become a moot point, that a lot more people may opt out because they know that they can immediately come back in.
Well, they really opt out for, even $5, $10.
Well, I understand that, but in the past, somebody might not have come back if they knew that, okay, they would have never opted out if they thought that they might have been precluded from coming back in because of a health condition.
But we've never had that, so we haven't had pre-existing. With a qualifying event, you can come back in.
Well, 28 years, I haven't opted out or in. I've
That's what I
stayed
say.
where I am.
You're unique, huh?
Because quite frankly, I have now Medicare, but also I have United Healthcare as a backup. That telephone company provides me for life, so I won't be opting in and out, and I don't want what I have received for 28 years taken away from me.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
But so those who opt out receive $1,200.
In addition.
And then halfway, they opt in. Right? Is that what you're saying? They decided to opt in. Is that possible?
Yes.
Yes, it is. It's possible.
If the spouse lost,
So that's not a periodic requirement? I mean,
Well, you
don't they have to wait
It's a
until at the
qualifying
end?
event.
No, sir. You have to have a qualifying event, so you can't just decide,
Birth
okay,
of a
well,
child,
yeah,
death of a spouse,
marriage.
when your spouse gets unemployed,
it's
laid off.
basically loss or gain of coverage.
Right. So an employee just can't say, well, I decided tomorrow to opt in. That's not how it works. As long as you have a qualifying event, then that coverage is effective, I believe, the first of the following month. So if it happens June 15th, if I'm covered on my spouse's plan, he loses his employment, he loses his coverage, then we can opt in to Tarrant County's plan on July 1st. And Diana's point is that happens quite frequently.
So what happened to the $1,200?
If I've spent it, then I've spent it. You can't come back and get it from me.
The law of risk and flexible
Do
spending.
we give the $1,200 on a monthly basis or just a?
It's
Per pay period.
available, well, and it's available to
Available
the
January
employer.
1st.
The first day of the plan
Through
year.
the FSA?
Yes,
They
sir.
can draw from it before it's actually there.
Yes.
I want to point out one thing I'm not sure I covered as well as I should have. If we go to the $600 plan, the administrative fee is a $3.15 rather than the $3. I just want that. So I don't, if there aren't other questions about this portion, we'll move to the next part of
So
the work
what you're
session.
looking for, probably in the next couple of weeks, is to opt in under either option 1 for 300 or option 2 for 600.
Yes, sir.
And then whether or not within that, if
How,
any changes that we would anticipate making to the FSA contributions, which what I hear the court right now favoring is no change to that, certainly in year 1.
and we hope to be able to bring this back to you July the 1st, the first time we have another full court. We certainly need to make a decision rather quickly because we have our health risk assessments at the end of July, and we need to let our employees know which direction we're going with our future of a wellness program. And, of course, then we'll also have to decide whether we want to offer it to our employees in cash only, cash or FSA/HSA, and how they're going to
Or let the employee choose.
choose, yeah.
Now, the FSA is part of a benefit plan,
Yes.
which is completely and totally separate from the wellness.
And
Because
that-
when you presented the two together, it will create this
They're-
perception that the two are tied together.
And as we go forward, we anticipate they will be tied together.
Okay, if they're going to be tied together, then the $240 that we're going to give away has to be tied to a certain accountability. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of having a wellness program.
Commissioner, I think what they're saying is that for the first year, the 240 would be there, and you have an option to, the ability to earn another 300. In the second year, the $240 will probably get rolled into the $300 or $600.
So in addition to the $300 from the spouse, the $300 from the employee, in the second year, $600 plus a potential of earning an additional $240.
Not in the second year.
Not in the second year.
The second, I think what we're saying is first year, employee only, $300, they still get the 240 they get the 240 for nothing,
FSA.
FSA. Second year, spouses are now included. The benefit, the highest, the award goes from 300 to 600, so potentially in a family or employee and spouse, the county could be on the line for $1,200, but the 240 would go away for the flexible spending.
We would just shift it to the wellness.
It would just be shifted over to absorb,
Included in.
to be included in part of that cost. Now you have to earn the 240. The opt-outs, we'll discuss that, and, I hear what you're saying, and that's something the court would make a decision on, but I consider, it might be that we would get to the point to where the opt-outs could still be, they could earn up to the 242 or up to the 600. If we can include the opt-outs in the deal, then that would be an ability to give them more.
Well,
But
we
if we
already-
choose, if we can't, then we can still choose to give them the 120 a month versus which is what they are actually getting right now.
Judge, But just to comment on one of the things that you said 1,200, we would be out 1,200. That would only be if we chose the $600 per employee.
In year two.
Yeah,
In year two, that's correct.
Because if we would stay with $300, then it becomes spouse, employee and spouse, that would be a total of $600.
And I hear that you're right, but the problem, I guess the problem that I probably would have with that is if I'm an employee, I've now, in year one, I've been able to earn an extra $300. In year two,
No, I understand what you're saying.
I've lost,
trying to catch
in effect, I've lost that extra 200, the ability to earn back the 240.
Because the impact of year 3 and year 2 are totally related to year 1. So if we're going to make a decision, I think we have to make a decision for 3 years. You see what I'm saying? Not just this year. If we say this year we do $300 and we'll continue the 240 the way it is, and then year 2 we'll make a total separate decision. And if we made the decision for another $300 in year 2, then it defeats, and then we'll take away the 240. Then to me that is a reduction of a perceived benefit.
But one thing
that may.
One of the things I would say though, that remember year 1 is pretty easy to get there.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that I think if, and what we discussed a little bit is if we give the 300 the first year for basically just filling out a couple of forms and doing a health risk assessment, year 2 you're beginning to have to do more. We're going to take the 240, we're going to put it there, so you still have to, you have the ability to keep the same amount of money, but you got to work harder at doing that. And so that's kind of the feeling, that's when, you know, what we talked about in terms of staging that. Year 1, maybe not paying as much because you're not asking as much, but beginning in year 2 and subsequent in year 3, it's a little bit harder stretch to get there and earn it, but we're going to let you earn a little bit more money by meeting that. So I agree with I hear what you're saying from a standpoint of let's keep it all the same, but we're asking them each year to step up their involvement in their activity a little bit. This kind of, the second year gives them that incentive to step up a little bit more.
Can we ask for the opinions of the audience?
You know, Commissioner, one thing to keep in
No,
mind.
but we don't have time today to hear all the opinions.
One thing to keep in mind, though, is you're going to make a change to an employer contribution to a flexible spending account effective 2015. Probably should have made that decision last year, because people honestly wait until after Christmas to use some of those funds they know we're going to roll. And so that's why we always give at least a full calendar year notice of any change to a contribution to a flex account, because it really does impact how people are maybe planning on getting dental work done or whatever, and the source of those funds. It may not change your discussion at all, but really probably the best practice year to do it would be in year 2, just from that perspective.
And I agree with you. And if we're going to do that in the future, if we're going to basically remove that incentive in the future, then we need to communicate today so that we don't set that false expectation.
Yes, sir.
And I think we've got, if we start off with the lower number, the 300, and keeping the 240 the same, then we've got the rest of this year and certainly the early part of next year before we make a decision. I mean, we're not opting in. The decision we'll make in a couple of weeks is only it's the first year decision. If we opt into option 1 with 300, it doesn't mean we're going to switch to option 2. We can switch to option 2 the next year if we want to, or we can keep it at option 1. That decision as to switch or not to switch is something we'll have to make sometime in 2015 before the 2016 year starts.
We've lost one court member. We're going to lose another one.
Well, and he said he'd be gone for about 15 minutes. He's got a conference call that he'll be gone for just about 15 minutes.
Well, this next one, does it have to be done today, or can we do it next week?
It doesn't have to be done today.
I have a doctor's appointment I need to go to.
I think we were just interested in making sure we had a full court.
Yes.
Are we going to have full court next week?
No, we'll have to do this on the 1st, because the clinic issue is not tied to the wellness program. Right. It's 2 separate things.
Okay.
Who's going to be out?
You and
Not me.
What?
I will.
2 of the 3 are going to be out.
When?
I'm sorry, 2 of the 5 are going to be out.
When?
Oh, just Commissioner Wynn? Okay, that's going to be next week. I thought we only had 3 court members in next week. Okay, all right, so we have 4 in next week, and then the next full one is the week after that, which is the 1st.
Okay.
So we can schedule, if
There's no urgency on the clinic from that perspective. Well, let's wait till July the 1st on the clinic. Now, that will be the day we'll be making a decision, though, on this wellness piece.
Yes.
As far as that first, at least as far as opting in, and which one of the options to do if we choose to opt in.
Right, that was our timeline.
Yes.
This
Yes,
was
sir.
not, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the clinic piece, PBC, I mean, you're always invited to come back and see us, but you don't need to participate now.
Probably going to be kind of sick of seeing us by then.
Now, the wellness clinic, is that going to be something where we're going to need to be making a decision fairly soon in order to get that in the budget? And when, I don't want to get too far into the presentation, but are we looking at this for something in fiscal year 26?
Certainly the
15,
budget.
I mean?
Yeah, well, I think so. What we're going to be looking for is direction from the court about whether or not there's interest in moving forward with doing the work to get a clinic established on site. The money is related to that. We have some estimates. We have some space that Facilities has located for us downtown in the Plaza building. Those monies do not include any money for staffing. At this point, it's just money that Facilities currently has in the budget to build out the space.
Nor equipment.
So,
Nor equipment.
Nor equipment, that's correct. So really, we're just looking from the court if it's something that you're interested in us pursuing.
Okay, well, we'll look at that on July the 1st then.
What all is this clinic supposed to do?
At this point, Commissioner, what we are going to be discussing with the court would be, again, to use the term de minimis care for employees. So if, for example, an employee is not feeling well, may believe that he or she has a temperature, they would go to the clinic. They would be seen by staff, and then staff could either treat them there at the clinic or refer them to their own physician if that physician or physician's assistant believed that referral was the best option. We could look at giving vaccinations, which of course we do flu vaccines. The county currently provides that for employees anyway. We've had some discussion about maybe pharmacy and what that might look like. We have to be careful, though, when we talk about care, that we don't get past, again, at least the consultant is advising us to limit the care to de minimis care, because then we get into a potential discussion about whether or not the excise tax then is looming out there.
Have y'all looked at or considered talking with JPS? They have a facility over there for their employees.
Yes, sir. We have.
It is in place. They have a doctor in there. They've got full staff. They do shots. They do whatever is needed, which is 5 minutes from here.
Yes, sir.
Why reinvent the wheel?
That's one of the questions that we are prepared to ask the court. We did speak with Mr. Manius about that.
But has
Sure.
anyone talked to JPS about it? Because they've got a family clinic over there for the hospital employees that I think we could mesh into very
easily,
comfortably. And it's not in the hospital property. It's over in one of those annex buildings, this side of the hospital.
Right. No, sir, we have not reached out to them. We did not want to do that without talking to the court first.
Well, you've got my permission. I would suggest that'd be the first thing I'd want you to do.
Okay, we can do that. If
That's
the
a
other
good
court
idea.
members are agreeable.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that certainly should be one of the things we explore.
That's right.
Do that.
So that way, on July 1st, we have all the details.
And I think that what they were saying, and I mean, it sounds like we're interested in going forward, but part of the question was, are we interested in exploring that further? Because before they go out and look at what other contracts might be available, if JPS, what arrangements could be made with JPS, where would the facilities be? All of those things are, whether it's within walking distance or whether it's within driving distance.
For who?
For
my precinct operations and all the others, it's going to be quite a bit of driving.
I understand, but we've got probably about 2,500 of our employees that are sitting in this downtown within walking distance of that.
Well, yeah, I hope somebody's got some estimated costs, because I just see I see this old dollar value going way up.
Well, and I think that's what they're asking. Are we interested enough for them to go out and bring in some estimated costs, or are we just really not interested in doing something like that? So I think we've heard that we're interested in doing it, but one of the things we want explored is the JPS alternative.
I'm not sure I'm interested in us exploring, reinventing the wheel over here in the plaza building a facility. I heard pharmacy included, shots may be included, liability. We've got a facility over there. Let's use it. JPS.
Let us do the basic research on JPS so that we can have this discussion on the 1st.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
We could leverage existing service, okay, without much exposure to additional cost and risk. And that would be a more feasible approach. The idea of putting in a brand new facility, clinic for Tarrant County employees, for me personally, needs a lot more vetting than sit down and talk about it and make a decision.
Understood.
Anything else?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
And we have no other business to conduct at this time, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.